In a scintillating 22-year career in the NHL, which included 3 Stanley Cups with Detroit, today's guest became successful because, as one teammate once said, he figured it out. He's finally retired after 22 years, but still figuring it out as he works to improve his sport as the league's new Vice President of Hockey and Business Operations. I welcome Hall of Famer or future Hall of Famer, Brendan Shanahan.
Thank you. I hope you didn't jinx me.
Yeah, I don't think I did. Does hockey have the same 5-year waiting period?
It's actually 3 in hockey. It's a 3-year waiting period.
Oh, it's 3 before you can be. So
Right.
you'll be going in the Hall of Fame in 2 years?
We'll see. We'll see.
But you're still trying to figure it out, Brendan, right?
Well, I think that's what you do. I think that's what sort of gets every athlete excited and motivates you every day while you're playing, and is to go to the rink or go wherever and learn something new and be challenged. And I think that was one of the most fun things about being a professional athlete that long, was that the game evolves and you're constantly trying to figure out new things and stay ahead of it, and to retire and to be involved in hockey. But on the business side of hockey has been, I'm back to being a rookie again.
You were rookie in the NHL in 1987 at the age of 18 with the Devils. In fact, you started your career with the Devils, ended it with the Devils, and a lot of great play and a lot of great memories in between. But in 1987, as a rookie, what was the first pertinent thing that you remembered learning with New Jersey?
Wow. I think it was just in general growing up. And, especially to come to this area, quite busy area, populated area. And I was, I went from growing up in Toronto, a part of Toronto, Mimico, to playing in London, Ontario, a small town, going to high school and playing junior A hockey, which is sort of like a semi-pro league, to all of a sudden coming here and dealing with New Jersey, trips into New York with my teammates, vowing I would never, ever in my life drive in the city of New York. That lasted about a year. And, I think that aside from all the performance that you have to do on the ice to justify why you're there at such a young age, then it also turns into how do you do laundry? How do you cook? How do you find a place to rent? How do you get telephone service? All the things that your parents, or when I moved away at 16 and moved in with a family, our land parents or billets used to do for you. Now you were suddenly doing yourself. And, I think teams assist you a little bit with that, but it's an adjustment that nobody really sees. That's sort of like, okay, quick, you're not a kid anymore. You're not a teenager anymore. You're a professional athlete. Learn those things quickly and don't let them interfere with your play on the ice. I
didn't realize Mimico was so close to Toronto, but you actually used to take the subway, right? Were you a Maple Leaf fan?
Yeah, I loved the Maple Leafs growing up. Darryl Sittler was my favorite player. And so I grew up in a real hockey hotbed. And Mimico it's a town. It's like, I don't know, I guess growing up in Boston, and you don't say you're from Boston, you say you're a Southie, or you're from Dorchester, or you're Quincy, or, it was in fact a town, but and people from there sort of still call it a town, but it's pretty much growing up in Toronto. So for all the people who have never heard of Mimico and think I grew up on a farm in Canada, I did take the subway and streetcars to school most days.
There is a story about you when you scored your first goal at age 18. You went out with the guys to drink, but you couldn't drink, right?
That's right.
You weren't old enough.
Right.
But here you're playing in the NHL and you're not old enough to drink. Come on.
Well, I was in my 3rd year in the NHL and I still wasn't old enough to drink. So
that's right.
And so I didn't drink till I was 21. Just kidding. In the summers. Canada, the legal age was 19. So in the summers, I'd sneak in a beer here and then. But no, I scored my first goal at Madison Square Garden. It was a exciting goal, game-winning goal. The team was happy. We rode the bus back to New Jersey, and we all went across the street, and the guys were saying, "Hey, kid, got to buy a round, first goal. Hey, Brooke." And I was thrilled to do it. And I actually got into the bar I bought the round, but before the beer could hit my lips, I sort of got the tap on the shoulder and escorted out. And I thought my teammates might follow me out and come with me somewhere else. But they just sort of waved and said, thanks for the beer, and I saw them the next day in practice.
There were 4 Shanahans in Mimico, and we're going to talk about Brendan's upbringing right after this. All 4 Shanahan brothers would fight each other and rally around each other. And not only did Brendan fight his older siblings, but his brother Sean directed him to fight kids in school. In fact, Brendan has said it was like living with Don King. I love that line.
Well, I had great older brothers. I loved them very much, but they were actually quite a bit older than me. Sean was the closest at 6 years older, and I don't know if I'd say I fought with them so much as I was smacked around a little bit when I stepped out of line. There wasn't a whole lot of fight back as much as I tried, but it was more like, get out of my seat, no, smack, okay. You made your point.
It was almost like your first year in the NHL, right?
Well, I was a little bit better by then. I felt like by the time I got to the NHL, the one thing I did have was a very good chin. I could take a punch, and that served me well when I went up against some of the men when I was still sort of an 18-year-old boy.
Your brothers were great lacrosse players. Did you play lacrosse also?
Yeah, that was our family sport.
Oh, it was?
You know, and the two sports lined up perfectly because, you know, it was indoor lacrosse in Canada, which is Canada's national sport, believe it or not hockey.
I didn't know that.
And so we would play hockey through the winter, and then when that ended, it was right when lacrosse would start up, and that was a summer sport. And it was a great training with all the running and with the physicality. It's a very physical sport in Canada.
What other training did you do? Was there any weightlifting and stuff like that?
As a family, I think what we did, we ran a lot. You know, obviously if you play lacrosse, we ran a lot. We were active. But we were strictly one of those like push-up, sit-up, pull-up families. So my dad he didn't really like seeing these young kids lifting weights, and he thought we'd get hurt. Nobody had trainers. Nobody went out and had like a program. You just sort of, if you wanted to be stronger, you did these things. And
there is a story, of course, Brendan Shanahan and the Shanahans of Irish descent, and you finally went to Ireland when you were 16 years old, and your dad was having the initial stages, I guess, of Alzheimer's, and several times couldn't remember your name in Ireland. That had to be a mixed bag there.
Yeah, it was a sad time, and again, going back to about 84, 85, when he first started to have these show these signs of early Alzheimer's, we really didn't know what Alzheimer's was, and nor did a lot of people. And after about a year or two, we realized though it wasn't going to get better, and we went off to Ireland, and we thought he was doing so well because he was remembering things from his childhood, but usually those are the last memories to go. You forget the person in front of you that you met.
Regressive thinking.
Yeah, you forget the person you met that day, or you know, how to start a car, but he was recalling things from his childhood. So we were excited in one sense, but then in the other sense, he would, you know, either forget my mother's name or forget my names.
Did he have a chance to see you in your rookie year with the Devils at all?
My father was still alive, but he really wasn't fully aware of what I was doing. And I do really feel in my heart, though, that he knew I was on my way. He sort of knew everything was going to be okay, but he wasn't around for the, you know, to reap the rewards that a father who took his little kid to morning practices and drove to, you know, long distances to tournaments, sat in a lot of very cold hockey rinks in Canada. He didn't get those rewards that he should have and deserved to. And in a way, I feel like he missed it, but I also had a lot of different moments in my hockey career where I did feel he was with me and was enjoying it somewhere else. Well,
speaking of rewards, a very rewarding career, 22-year career for Brendan Shanahan. I'll be back with Brendan right after this. Every hockey player wants to score hat tricks, have a triple goal night, but my guest Brendan Shanahan is the rare player to be in the triple goal club. Now what is that? having won the three most prominent team titles in hockey, an Olympic gold medal, a world championship, and a Stanley Cup. And that's remarkable.
Yeah, that's what I tell people.
That's what we just told people,
Yeah, it's good.
too.
You did a great job.
You also have a great sense of humor, as you can tell. In your media guides, you once said that you lived in an Irish manor, you'd run with the Bulls in Pamplona, you'd auditioned for the role of Dino on the Flintstones. What were some other things that you said? And all of them you never did, right?
Oh, yeah. I was an extra in Forrest Gump. I was the World Cup goalie for Ireland. And
you were a ball boy for Andre Agassi?
Something like
Right.
that. I don't know. What had happened was when you come back at the end of every season, somebody gets the job of doing the media guide, and they have to go around to the players and ask them, what was your summer like? What did you do? And whatever my summers were like, they were probably pretty boring and probably pretty typical. And I think someone said that to me, and that was a mistake because for the next 4, 5, or 6 years, I lied every year to this guy. And he printed everything I told him, and he took it all as the truth. And no matter how outrageous I would come up with something, he would print it. And so everybody thought these things were true. And then finally, it got out that I was maybe not so truthful with the media guide writer.
We talked about the gold medal, the Stanley Cup. If you could pick a pinnacle or an apex of your career, what would it be? Or is it hard to do?
Well, it is hard to do. Each moment or each championship is very special. But I do think, like, to be fair, to try to answer the question, your first as much as the gold medal was amazing. To be at the Olympics, something with that history.
Right?
2002. I was in the '98 Olympics. We didn't win. I was in the 2002 Olympics. We won the gold. That was fantastic. We won a world championship for Canada at a tournament in Italy. But to win a Stanley Cup, and to win my first Stanley Cup specifically, they're all sweet, but that very first one in '97, again, it's just something. When I grew up, every time I blew out the candles on my birthday, it was about making the NHL and winning a Stanley Cup. The pressure that was on each of those teams, because there were long droughts. It had actually been a long time. In '94, it was a long time for Canada to win a world championship, and then in 2002, it had been a long time since Canada had won an Olympic gold, because the Soviets used to dominate. And then, of course, the same in Detroit. So there's that feeling of, we're close, and a little bit of fear when you get close to those championships. So it adds to the great feeling.
Well, we're close to a break, too. We'll be right back with Brendan Shanahan right after this. I'm back with Brendan Shanahan, who is now in the league office of the NHL and had a remarkable 22-year career. And I guess the 22-year career was launched in your second year when you made the move, the famous move from center and right wing to left wing.
The moment I went over there to the left side, and what was funny was I had already played a year and a half in the NHL, sort of going back and forth between center and right wing, had been drafted as a centerman. But there was an injury to a left winger on our number one line, on our most talented top line. And the Devils at the time came to me and said, "Have you ever played left wing?" And I said, "Sure, of course. I love left wing."
It's kind of the Dino, the voice of Fred Flintstone.
Exactly. Right. But I mean, if they asked me to, put on a headdress and play with those two guys, I would have said sure. But as it turned out, there was a spot open on a wing that I'd never played before, but they were with two of our best players, and I jumped at it, and it immediately worked for me. And I didn't even know it would, but what had happened is I was able to one-time a lot of pucks, and I developed a really good shot.
One-time a lot of pucks.
A one-time is basically being in a position where you can shoot the puck without truly stopping it and setting it up. It's shooting the puck off of a pass. So to be on my off wing, to be a left winger, but to be a right-handed shot is untraditional in hockey.
I see.
The Europeans were doing it well before the NHLers were doing it. They had figured it out before us. But now for me, when I would receive a pass, I was able to shoot in mid-stride, and I developed a good shot and a quick release, and it ended up being where I stayed for most of my career, and how I got most of my goals was a quick release. 656 goals and over 2,000 penalty minutes, right? And that's part of hockey, right? Yeah. Well, it worked for me. I wasn't talented enough to get those 656 goals if I didn't have a little bit of intimidation, or as they say in hockey, you put the fear of God into the people trying to defend you a little bit. And it was a different time, and I guess there's intimidation in all sports. It's the same in pitching. You want your pitcher to be a little bit intimidating. And for me, that worked. And I didn't go out looking for trouble, but I certainly made, I sort of established a code early in my career, and you have to make sure that you adhere to that code when people cross that line, to keep that room, to keep that space, to give you that little extra half second in front of that net.
As a vice president in the NHL office now, do you think you'll be more understanding of players who are in the penalty box?
Oh, I completely understand it, and we've suspended players while I've been there, and I, some of our best players in the NHL right now have a physical and intimidating style to their game. Ovechkin is a great example of a guy that people know he's our best scorer in the NHL, but they also know he's a great hitter and he loves the physical aspect of the game. And it happened to me as a player. I think I was disciplined by the league 12 times. And it just comes with the territory. And you have to just sort of write that paycheck to the league and say, well, it's worth it. And I don't ever remember going out and intentionally trying to pick on someone or hurt someone. But I do think that there's certain players that, a little bit of like I said, making sure that the opponent, not just with you, but with your teammates, is respecting the code and respecting your organization.
And Brendan, when I think about it, professional sports are at their healthiest height right now. Baseball, football, and certainly hockey.
Yeah, hockey, we've polled a lot of people, and we feel it ourselves, but more importantly, our fans are suggesting that the actual game on the ice is, possibly never been better.
Mm-hmm.
So,
faster, stronger.
Well, we implemented some new rules about 5 years ago that really opened up the skill and allowed our most skillful players to really flourish. And so the game is a lot faster. And we also had an emphasis on entertainment for the fans, while maintaining the integrity of the history of our sport.
What was one of those rules, as an example?
Well, the biggest thing we did was we felt there was starting to be too much clutching and grabbing and hooking and holding in the NHL, and we sometimes used to use the comparison of, Michael Jordan making some of his most memorable shots, and can you imagine as the clock is ticking down and Michael Jordan, jumps up in the air to make a game-winning shot, and someone was allowed to just grab him by the hips and pull him down on the floor before he did it, and that's what hockey was becoming. So we just tightened up on rules that were already in place, and now our minor hockey players and our youth hockey players are growing up with these new standards, and by the time they're getting to the NHL, their ability to display their skill has never been better.
We're going to finish with this. I know we're running short on time, but that one game where I think you were playing junior hockey, and the whole team was taken off, right? All 20 players gone, because they all thought, what was it, a forfeit?
It was in, at the time it was Czechoslovakia. It was before the Czech Republic, Slovakia, and we had a game over there, Canada versus Russia, and the bench is empty. I think it was the last bench clearing brawl I was in. I was 17.
And in international hockey, you can't fight, right?
That's what they told us that after the fact. It's a little late. As they were escorting us to the Austrian border, we were like, a little late.
That is great.
Something we needed to know before the game.
I cannot thank you enough.
Thank
loved
you.
having you
Thank
on.
you very much.
Thanks a million, Brendan.
Thank you.
Brendan Shanahan's been my guest. I'm Tim McCarver. See you next time.